Hi, welcome to Life, God, and the Universe. Today's topic is a continuation of last week's topic. It's part 2 of the topic entitled, Is there a Creator? Last week we talked about that question with respect to biology, with respect to life, and we talked about the notion of evolution. And the theory of evolution says that all forms of life started from a single cell. That was your basic unit of which everything was created. And we ran into a problem with the theory of evolution, namely something called irreducible complexity. It turns out that a single cell is way more complex than we ever dreamed of. The way to think about this is the following. If you look at the human body, there's various organs. There's a heart and lungs and digestive system. And it turns out the body doesn't function if any of those major organs are missing. Well, it turns out the basic building block of life, a single cell, is like that. It has lots of subcomponents such that if you remove any of them, it doesn't function at all. And so the big question is, how does evolution explain this? And unfortunately, today it can't. And so you're left with sort of two options here. You either imagine that evolution somehow is going to figure out an explanation of this, or you fall back to the notion of, you know what, maybe there's a creator that created life in the first place, that created the mechanism for evolution. Now, the way to figure out, well, which of these explanations is the most plausible one, we're going to use something in philosophy called Occam's razor. Occam's razor works the following way. If you have two different possible explanations for something, Occam's razor says that the most likely correct answer is the one that turns out to be the simplest answer. And so, given that there's some complex process that occurred in evolution that explains how a cell got created in the first place, that versus, you know what, there's just an outside creator, Occam's razor would really suggest that there's probably an outside creator. Okay, so, having discussed is there a creator from a biological perspective, let's now address the question from a cosmological perspective. How did the universe get created? Okay, if you look from a religious perspective, such as the Bible, you read in Genesis, you have the notion of a creator, God, that created the universe. So God was outside the universe and then created the universe, what we see today. There's another explanation in science called the Big Bang. And in the Big Bang, it turns out that there was a moment in time when everything in the universe was created. Now, when I say everything, I mean everything. So the notion of mass, energy, the dimensions of space and time were created. So, in other words, there was a point where there was nothing at all. And then out of nothing came this thing that we know as our universe. And so, coincidentally, it's not unlike the Genesis story of there was an outside something that caused the universe to be created. Now, if you examine the possible explanations of that, there's really sort of two categories. One is that a notion that, you know what, there's just an outside creator. There was a God that created everything that we see, that created the dimensions of space and time, mass and energy, and this thing called a Big Bang occurred from this outside creator. It's one explanation. A second explanation that is used today in science is this notion of, you know what, maybe there were various universes out there that collided, that interacted, and as a result of that collision or interaction, the universe we see today is created. It's plausible, but here's something I struggle with that particular explanation. It turns out the mathematics is very, very complicated and predicts things that are strange and we've not observed at all. A second problem is you really can't prove that theory at all. It's nice speculation, but the energy levels needed in a laboratory to validate that possible explanation cannot be created today. And so, for me, I fall back on Occam's razor again. Given the possible explanations of multiple universes colliding and interacting and creating the universe we see today versus, you know what, there was just an outside creator. The God that we hear of in the Bible, maybe that is the creator that explains the universe we see today. From my perspective, Occam's razor suggests, again, there's a creator. There's the God that we hear described in the Holy Bible. Having discussed the question of is there a creator from both a biological and cosmological perspective, you can see that I tend to side on the answer of yes, I truly believe there is a creator for both life and the universe that we see today. Turns out I'm in pretty good company. The man identified and voted as the most influential man of the 21st century also believed that there exists a creator. That man was Albert Einstein. It turns out a lot of scientists actually believe the notion that there is a creator. So a lot of people think that, oh, all scientists are atheists. That's not true at all. That's really in the minority here. So having explored the question of is there a creator, and for myself coming to the conclusion the answer is yes, that opens up a whole possibility of worldviews here that we'll talk about in future discussions here on Life, God, and the Universe. Thank you for listening, and God bless.